Thanks for coming out. And thanks for Beaumont. How do you pronounce is it Beaumont Guitars? I was pronouncing it Beaumondi, but it's wrong. See that? It's the Italian in me, I guess. You always have to pronounce the E at the end. But thanks so much for having me out, and thanks to Ibanez Dario for sending some cool stuff to give away. And Andres has a handout of some stuff that that you guys can take that I put together. It's just some transcriptions and some of the music that you're hearing, some you know, some little things about some of my music and some ideas. Hopefully some of the stuff gets you inspired. We'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff in there. And you know, I'm here, you know, I'm gonna play some songs. You know, I am here to answer questions about equipment, about music, about songwriting. Whatever you guys, you know, it really is these, I've done a lot of these things, so it's really, you guys make it exciting. So participation from you guys really is what makes these things happen. So please don't be shy, ask whatever you guys want to ask. And if you don't ask anything, it's okay too. I'll just go along and do what I, you know, talk about different topics. I'll start the topics, but it definitely helps with the participation from all of you. And we're gonna get things going. I'm gonna do something from my new record. The name of the record is called 821 Monroe Drive, and this song is called Castle in the Air. Thanks so much. Is it too loud for everybody? Is it all right? Yeah? Good, good. Let's see. So a couple of things. As you can tell, this music is instrumental, so there's no vocals in it. But I kind of pride myself on writing songs that that sort of have a vocal quality to it. So it's not like this, what they call shredding. I know someone said shredding before. I guess I could be considered a shredder, but I think Guitar World did a quote on me one day, and they said hummable shred. So I think that's kind of more where I'm at. It's where I kind of try and write like a song where there's a chorus, there's a verse, there's a solo section and stuff like that. And I think that's important because it seems to me when especially been playing around for so long that not only do you get musicians that like your stuff, but you also get regular folk liking it because it has some melody to it. So my mission is to hopefully that you guys will walk away from here and there's going to be some crazy one of these melodies going on in your head and you'll be like, wow, I still remember that. And that means I did my job. But there are, just because, it's instrumental doesn't mean that there's a meaning behind it. And that's really what I like to talk about during these clinics is, a songwriting process maybe that'll might be different. It might help some of you guys if you're musicians and stuff. So how many of you guys do play that are here? Cool. Are you guys songwriters? Okay. Well, you gotta start somewhere, right? So what I try and do is, I don't know if it's in the sheet, but there are some things in there. As we go through some of the songs, there's some transcriptions of some of the stuff that I'm playing that'll be in that sheet and stuff. But what I try and do is, and I've been doing this for a while, and I've been teaching for a long time, when you try, the whole thing behind the guitar is, and what I want to try and show you guys is to try and get stuff that's related, like something in your life that's emotional, that means something to you, and somehow related to the instrument. So there's like little exercises that you could do that I think are kind of cool, because I've done it with students, and every time, whoever you do it with, they come back with something different. So, like for example, what I try and do is, and you could do this with anything, a melody, you could do it with a chord. So an easy example is like a chord. So if you tell, like if I asked you and you were coming to me for a lesson, I would say, you know what, play me a chord that, that maybe reminds you of God, say, right? If some of you believe in God, that's great. If not, it's okay. But so some people would play different things. My God chord is this one. Let me get a clean sound. One second. So is this one. It's a nice big E chord, you know what I mean? If God was a woman, who might be, right? This might be my chord for that. Right? So it's the relationship to something that you're thinking about and somehow relating it to guitar. So, I mean, you could do that with anything. You could, if you guys have pets, you could think about, what's the chord that reminds you of your cat, you know what I mean, or your dog or something like that. It's a way to start to get something meaningful into your playing. And then, as you keep doing this type of stuff, it will work its way into songs. And that's, how I write like songs. Each song is really means something different. It's an inspiration. So like, for instance, I'll explain to you what that other song that I just played is called Castle in the Air. And that's on my new record. And what the meaning behind that track is, I'm a type 1 diabetic. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's diabetes, and I've had it since I'm 11 years old. And what happens sometimes is it's called an insulin reaction. You have too much medication, and you kind of pass out and stuff like that. So basically, one time I had one of these things, and it was pretty bad, and I kept hearing like that melody, and when I woke up, I still remembered it. And the weird thing about it is, like a lot of people think if you passed out, it's almost like a coma. Like you think that the people can't hear what's going on, but I really heard everything that was going on. It just looked like I was out of it. So that kind of experience, that's where I kind of thought about this thing, and I thought it was a dream, and then I finally woke up, and I was like, wow, I got sick. So then I started to look up in a thesaurus what dream, and I looked up dream, and it was in there. It was Castle in the Air. It was like a synonym for it. So that's how I came up with the title. So like little, things that happen, try and get an inspiration from it, and then try and write a song about it. So it's definitely something that I suggest you guys do, and it's something you could do as little as, like I told you, start with a chord, then you could do a melody, and then you could work it up into a full song. So throughout the night, we'll go through songs, and I'll kind of show you guys and tell you guys what the inspiration was behind them. So we're going to do another one. We're going to slow things up a little bit. We'll do a little mellow one. This one's cool. Again, I'm going to do some from the new record, and then I'll do some from some of the other records. This one's called Foreign Matter. so much. Um, so first, before we go on, I always like to ask questions, see if you guys have any questions. So anybody have any questions about anything, stuff we spoke about, stuff about the guitars, about equipment? Um, Anybody?
Very nice sound.
Oh, thank you.
You're a little Steve Vai influence.
Yeah, there's a, I'm a big like mixture of like everyone that I've listened to. So you're gonna, big influences of mine are definitely, Steve Vai is in there, but Gary Moore. There's definitely some Hendrix in there, and you'll see feedback. I got my feedback thing from him. John Sykes, I like a lot. Trying to think who else. And believe it or not, Mick Taylor from the Rolling Stones. Yeah.
Are you more of like a rock purist, or do you ever expand out other genres for inspiration?
I listen to everything. I mean, you'll see this. That definitely a lot of different types of music that I write, but definitely it's a mixture of rock, maybe fusion, and a little jazz kind of thrown in there. But I do listen to all types of music. I mean, anything. You can learn something from anything, and something will inspire you. Yeah. This is called an Ibanez, and it's called a Prestige model, and it's available. I think they have some in the stores here, and that's also, speaking about guitars. That's another Ibanez guitar. That's called an S series, and that's by Ibanez as well. Yeah. Anything else?
I noticed that the Ibanez has a pretty versatile sound.
Yeah.
Frank Gambale,
Right.
you got a nice jazz sound.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. It's also, the way you have the pickup selection. You know what I mean? You could do. You get a lot of different, nice sounds. Just by the pickup selection.
Vibe selection?
Yeah, yeah. My favorite spots really are, especially for clean stuff, is either the 2, which is this one, or the 4. Yeah, there's some. The effects are coming through this amp, so that's some reverb. There's a little chorus on there and delay. Somebody else you had to. No, I started playing guitar at 11 years old, and my sister showed me a couple of chords, and I started studying at a local shop like this one, and I kept taking lessons. I still think it's always good to learn. You can never stop learning, so I still try and get lessons if I can now from somebody that maybe is a different style than I am, just to pick up some stuff. I ended up going to college to get so I got a performance and a music theory kind of degree in contemporary jazz. Well, you know what? When I look back on it now, because I teach a lot of guitar, and I've been teaching a lot. I started playing at 11, and I was teaching at like 15 years old already. And I have like a lot of students that come, and I have a couple of, which I'm proud of, that I helped them get into like Berkeley and some of these cool colleges. But then there's like parents that bring their kids, and they're in high school and they want to go to a music college, and I talk to the kid first, of course, but I try and convince them that it may not be the best thing to do, because did the college help me with the career? No. Maybe it'll help you get more knowledge, but you can get the knowledge from private instruction, and you might as well go to college and learn something else. And especially nowadays with the computer and everything, you better learning some computer science, something else, and you could use that towards music. Yeah, and live life, because that's what's going to inspire you.
How important is having like a strong grasp of music theory to writing your songs?
That's a good question. I could only tell you what I learned from a really cool instructor that I had in college, and he said to me, he said, "Hey Balducci," he says, you got to learn everything. He says, and then you have to forget it. And I didn't really understand what he was saying at that point, but now I do. And basically, what it is learning the music theory is a good thing, and learning as much as you can because it'll help you, learn the instrument and stuff. But when it comes to writing, it doesn't come into play at all. I mean, I don't sit and think, hey, I'm going to write this song and I want to write it in E flat and it's going to be in the 6/8 key signature. Now, are there bands that do that? Yes, but you could probably tell that they're doing that. My songwriting really comes from what I kind of tried to show you a little bit in the beginning. Yeah, and it's inspired by something that happened, something personal in my life. Like for instance, that song is called "Foreign Matter" that I just played, and that was I had a godmother. She passed away now, but every time I used to go to a house when I was a kid, she used to give me $2 and say, "Listen, I want you to go around the yard and pick up the foreign matter." That she meant the cigarette butts and all the stuff that was on the floor. So I would go and I would pick up all the stuff and I would get my $2 and go buy a guitar magazine with it. Back then, now they're $15. But that was the inspiration behind that song. So thinking about my time as a childhood and with my aunt and stuff. So what I try and do is I'll think of something and try and think of the melody in my head, or if it's a chord thing. For like that song, I came up with that little part. That's what I had first. And then I kind of just changed it, made it like a chordal thing. Without, and I didn't sit there and know, I didn't know what key it was. I didn't even know what I was doing. It just sounded good. And a lot of times I'll do that. And it's a good thing that you brought that up because there's something in the book that's called chord morphing, is what I call it. And basically what that is like, there's so many chord books. If you go to my house, I got all these music books and stuff. And you pick up these books now and there'll be 25 chords just on one page. The whole book has 150 chords, and you're thinking, what am I going to do? I got to memorize all these goddamn chords. But the thing is, you really don't. If you took, there's a little example in there. If you take a regular C major bar chord, and you don't even have to know what you're doing. It's just, the chord. And then what you do is just take each note of the chord and just mess around with it. So take the chord, take this note, and say you're going to flat it. So you flat that and you get this. End up getting a minor chord, but it doesn't matter. Do you like the way it sounds? Then what I would do is I would take a little thing and I would jot down this new chord. Then I would say, well, you know what happens if I take that note that I just flatted and I flat it again? You get that. And I say, wow, that sounds nice. So then I jot that down, and you do that with each of the chords, so each of the notes. So now we'll take the root on the third, and we'll sharp that. You end up getting, well, that sounds weird, but it could be cool, right? Right. So what that does is it also makes it's sort of a built-in voice leading for yourself, because you get different sounds without moving your hand too much around the neck. And I wrote a song. I'll do that song next. I wrote this song, "Falling Water," by doing that little exercise. So. That's the part of the song. And the thing is, I took that chord, and then I flatted the fifth. I brought it down to there. And then I flatted the fifth again, and I got that. And I was like, wow, that sounds really nice. Now, did I know the theory, what I was doing? No, I mean, it doesn't matter. It sounded nice. So that's what I did. So that's kind of, when it comes to writing, the music theory stuff doesn't really come into play. Anything else before we go on? All right, we'll go on. This one's called "Falling Water." That one's called Falling Water. If you look in that handout that I gave you, it actually explains a little bit about the solo in there, and the solo is transcribed. So it's pretty cool. And there's also, if you look on that if you see it, it's like, I should have page numbers on here, but I don't. But there is something in there which is called Finding Inspiration, which is something that we've been talking about a little bit regarding the writing of the songs and stuff. And that song in particular is called Falling Water. I don't know if you guys know, but there's actually a property, I think it's up in Pennsylvania, called Falling Water. It's by Frank Lloyd Wright. So that's basically what inspired that kind of song. The song for, I kind of came up with that idea that the beginning was supposed to kind of mimic a little bit of a watery type of sound. Let me see if I can get it here. 1 second. So if you get it nice and clean. On the album, there's a bunch of guitars going on, but that kind of. It's supposed to be like, running water. That's at least how I saw it. So, but and the whole idea of that house where it's nature combined with technology. So that's why that song kind of has like that. It kind of has that soft kind of sections, and then it goes into that crazy kind of lead section where the guitar is distorted, and there's that crazy kind of lead going on. So that's supposed to represent the more of the modern stuff that's going on, as opposed to the nature. So it's the two sides of it. Again, that's that's kind of goes back to what we were talking about the inspiration behind the songs and what they kind of mean. Any questions on some of the gear? You guys notice that I do use a wah a lot. I said that to George before, and I've been endorsed with Marley for a while, and this I think which I think it might be the Bad Horsey one because it doesn't have the stuff on it, but that's which one it's one of the very early ones, and they do sound different. People think you're crazy with equipment, but I have so many different wahs, and they all sound different. It could be the same wah. But any questions from anybody before we move on about any of this equipment, guitars, anything?
Could you talk about the signal from the guitar all the way to the amp, how you're setting it up?
Sure. Sure. Well, guitar, I have a pretty easy setup. It's the guitar first, right? Goes into my wah pedal. If you notice, I don't have my wah pedal on the board, and it's not because it doesn't fit. And I'm not using electricity with it either. I'm running it off a battery. And the reason for that is I've always found that when I run a wah off of the same electricity that my other stuff is on, that you get like some very weird noise going on. So I keep it off the board, away from the other stuff, and I run it on a battery, and I don't really have that problem. So that's why that's like that. So it's the wahs on the floor first. The first thing I go into. Then I go into a poly tuner, the small tuners from TC Electronics. And then out of the tuner, I'm going into the Whammy 5 pedal. From the Whammy 5, I go into a Keeley D&M drive. From the D&M drive goes into a Ibanez Tube Screamer, which I'm going to give that away at the end of this thing. I think we have some raffle tickets. And then from the Tube Screamer, it's going into an Ultimate Octave by Full Tone, then into a Phase 90, and then the last thing is a Keeley Monterey Special, which is a Monterey pedal, and then it goes directly into the amp, which is a DV Mark multi-amp. Delay and everything is inside the unit already. So if I did have delay and I was using something, I always put the delay through the effects loop, and as far as anything else, I would keep it on the floor. The stuff with pedals is, basically what the basic thing that they tell you with pedals is that you're like your choruses and all that kind of stuff, you're supposed to keep at the end of your thing and go into your board, go into the amp from there. But you know, there's a lot of things you can mess around with. Like I don't have it on this one, but a lot of times what I'll do is with the phase shifter, I'll actually put it like it'll be right after the whammy pedal. It'll be the phase shifter, then into the overdrive, because then the overdrive pushes the phase. So you get a more stronger. So anything you kind of the overdrive pushes, you're going to get more of an effect from it. That's why I like my wah first, then at the end, because I usually have the overdrive on a lot, so it's pushing the wah. So you can really mess around with that for different things. You know, if you guys are familiar with Van Halen, that Atomic Punk, you know, he's getting that sound. That's the phase, but it's not. The phase is getting pushed by an overdrive. That's why it's so, you know, it's so prominent in the sound.
What is that thing over your trumpet?
This is Ibanez made these a long time ago. I think back in 1987. And they called it like a hand rest, and it enables you to rest your hand on the bridge without it going sharp. So if I didn't have this here, and I rested my hand here, so with this here, it prevents you from doing that. And they stopped making them for some reason, so I ended up getting some of them, and then I had some guy make me a few of them. So I have one for a lot of my guitars. I have it for. This is called the whammy bar, and that's the whammy bar is so you can make different. You get a weird sound with it. So watch. So basically, what it does is it brings the note, and you can flatten it, or you can sharpen it. What? Yeah, it goes into the guitar here, and then you just kind of press it. Yeah, it's pretty easy to use. Great. Yeah. All right. We'll keep going. You have another question?
Quick question. Can you comment quickly on like the gauge the strings you're using and how much that affects your playing style?
Sure. I'm kind of like, you know, there's a lot of myth about the string gauge thing. I'm like, I use 9s on any guitars that have a bar on it. I'm using straight 9s, and I use D'Addario. I use the new NYXLs, and I really like the new NYXLs. They last longer. They feel a little bit slinkier to me, and they do have this thing, if you read up on them, where it's like a little bump in the EQ on them that actually pushes your guitar sound a little bit out. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah, so I've been using the NYXLs, but and then usually on guitars that don't have a bar on it, I use 10s, just because of the feel on the neck. The bar kind of makes it a little bit heavier on the tension. But as far as gauge strings, it's really what you're comfortable. I mean, like if you look, you know, there's this cool article with God, now I'm running a blank, and I'm trying to remember his name. B.B. King. That's it. B.B. King had this article, and they said, hey, you know, what gauge strings do you use? And he was like, I use 8s. And they was like, 8s? And, you know, he's the guy, everyone thinks of B.B. King. I don't know if you know him, but B.B. King is supposedly the tone. You know, everyone loves him for his tone. And he's like, you're using 8s? And he's like, yeah. He says, well, why would I use anything else? And they said, well, we read that you used to use 13s. And he said, I only use 13s because that's all they made back then. And he said, I'm using 8s. He says, why would you want to work your fingers harder than they have to? He says, I use 8s. And, you know, two guys that you think about tone, of him and also the guy from ZZ Top. ZZ Top has special strings made of 7s. So the tone thing about the gauge strings really doesn't mean anything. It's all what you're used to. With these, no, you know, well, it depends. This one the Ibanez ones I've never had a problem with. It locks up here, you lock it in tune, and then you have fine tuners down here. And I mean, you see I'm going crazy with the bar, and it's not really. It's pretty good. Yeah. All right, we'll do another one.
Bye.
we know some couple of stuff already. We know that chord morphing thing. So for those of you who came in later, I put out a handout to some stuff in there. There's also some transcriptions to some of the songs that I'm playing tonight. And there's also that thing on finding inspiration, which comes into play on a lot of different stuff tonight. Just so, I just wanted to talk about the songs with you, about the inspiration behind the songs. So that song was called Natalie Rose, and that was written for my niece who actually passed away, and that was her name. So that's what the inspiration behind that song is from. And usually, that's when you're writing a song, somebody brought up before, like if you're thinking about technical things or anything like that, and it's really coming from personal experience is the best way to write a song without thinking about musical knowledge. And a lot of times, what I'll do is, I'll sit and with the guitar by myself, and I'll think about, it's almost like a meditation. You think about something that inspires you. So it could be anything, about a book that you read, it could be something on the news, it could be a girlfriend, it could be a mother, it could be a father, it could be a pet. I wrote, there's so many songs that I've written about all those things I mentioned. I'll play, the next song I'll play is a song I wrote about a cat. I had a cat called Munchie, and he was with me for 22 years. Almost made it through all the records except this last one. So I called this song called Magic Cat. And I actually got like little iPhone clippings that I had of him, and I put his little meow at the end, and in the front his purring sound. So I mean, you kind of have to sit there when you think about what inspires you, and then you kind of let it come to you, whatever it is. It could be just a small little melody, or it could be a chord, or it could be a progression, and then it's not an easy process. So the thing is, for you to do that kind of thing, you got to do it constantly. And that's kind of what I do. I'll sit down and maybe I'll just have a little piece, like of a melody. And then that'll be it. So what I'll do is I'll sit and record it. And I used to do it like a long time ago. I used to have the little cassette recorder, or I would actually do these things where I'd hum it. I'd have this thing in my head, and I would call my own answering machine and leave it on the answering machine. My girlfriend at that time thought I was nuts. She would probably find these messages of me like humming this crazy stuff. But I mean, it does work. I mean, and then once you have that little piece, then you could expand on it and try and think about more about the content and where it takes you. And it's not really musical. Like, so that song that I was playing is a song that I wrote for my wife. It's called Empress. And sometimes, like, I learned a new chord. This was the chord. So I sat there and I kind of really liked it, and I had that inspiration that I wanted to write the song for my wife. So I had this chord, and what I do a lot with a lot of my songs is I have the chord, and I don't really right now. I wasn't thinking about what key is it in. I just like the sound of it, and then what I like to do is move the same chord to different spots. So I started moving it around. Sounds pretty cool, So I was without having to change anything. So then I took that and I started to come up with this, because I had this. So that was the first chord. Then I ended up going here. So the song, basically, the rhythm is that same chord. Then I changed. A lot of times, those changes are coming from just messing around or hearing it. So when I had this, I knew I wanted that note on top. So I just messed around till I came up with the A minor. And And then a lot of times what I'll also do is the bass movement has a lot to do with how the song flows and stuff. So a lot of my songs, the movement of the chords is chromatic. So like the lead section to that, again, starts on that same chord. Watch the bass line. It just keeps moving back. Keeps going down. Again. So that the bass movement has a lot to do with it. And again, when I'm doing this, it's not like I didn't come up with this thing that fast. I mean, I sat there and I started to think about, you got to think about what the next part you're hearing in your head will take you. So a lot of times I'll write songs in bits and pieces. So I have like these little tapes and recordings of like just little parts, and then I'll play over and over again. And then in your head, you're thinking, well, what's the next chord going to be? You know what I mean? And then sometimes it'll come to you. You'll hear like the bass note. Then I'll say, all right, you know what? That's the bass note, you know. So then I'll try that magic chord that I thought sounded good everywhere. Oh, hey, that sounds pretty good, right? And that's kind of the way I do it. It's not really thinking anything musical as far as music knowledge. It's all what you're hearing in your head. And you do that so I do that now with solos as well. You kind of like, if I have the background chords to a solo, I'll sort of sit there and, I'm not really that great of a singer, but I'll sit in my head and I'll hum, hey, oh, I think I'm hearing this kind of thing. And the whole cool thing about this is that without the instrument in your hand, you're going to come up with a phrase or something on the guitar that you wouldn't come up with if you were actually sitting with the instrument, because it's sort of like we always play the same type of things on the guitar. All of us guitar players, when I pick up the guitar, I always play the same riff. But if you don't have the guitar and you kind of like hum something, it's going to take you in a different direction. And then you transpose what you're humming and you transpose it to the guitar. And the cool thing about that is you really can never hum inside your own mind out of key. So whatever you're hearing in your head, if you could get that to the guitar, it's always going to be in tune. And I'll show you like a phrasing that I would never have played, if I didn't do that. So there's this song called Liquid Soul that I have, and the solo section starts like with this weird and it's over like a basic kind of D minor thing. And if I had the guitar on my hand, I would probably went to pentatonic or something. But I hummed this. I had that little thing. So I never would have just played that off the cuff. So it's the humming thing, and then I started to do the same thing after that. So this solo is sort of like a mixture of those two concepts. So there's the humming thing, which would happen in the beginning, and then this part. That's all the hummed part. So this whole thing. After that, it's all nonsense, which is not the humming part, but my favorite parts of the solo are those sections. Like this little thing. Phrasing, that kind of little, I probably wouldn't have played that. So it does, make a difference when you do that kind of thing. And I suggest you do it because the only way to get good at it is to repeat it and to keep doing it. Any questions about any of that stuff?
Yeah, to continue on writing and recording more in high volume solo sections, how do you actually go about like writing down the faster paced solo sections? Once you come up with it, you have to sit down and go, no, I don't write it down.
Well, you know what it is. I don't write it down. I don't write it down. I'll record it. On now with Pro Tools, I'll go in and I'll record it. Or everyone has like an iPhone or something. The iPhone actually has this thing called music memos. Like the voice memos thing. It's a really cool thing. It's called music memos, and you turn it on, and you can set it to automatically record when it hears a sound. So you put that thing on. I put that thing on, and it's a free app. I put it on, and I'll play something, and then it automatically starts to record it, and it can put a drum beat to it, and it'll actually give you it'll write out the chords. You can email it. I can email it to my band. And it's a free thing. Music memos, yeah. So that's what I'll kind of do. And the thing with so the other thing that I really started to do with solos is, especially now with the whole concept of the way digital recording comes, is my solos are like, I actually have to learn my solos after the records are done because I try and be very spontaneous. I'll put the backing track on, and then I'll record one take, I'll record another take, and then I go back and I'll listen to it, and maybe I'll like the first half of the one solo, and then now with, you could just paste them together. And then I have to go back, and it's sort of like all my improvisations, I have to learn them, and then that comes into the solo.
That's what I was curious about. How do you go about memorizing things so complicated?
It's hard. I mean, sometimes there's certain parts of solos that I'll always play the same, but then a lot of the times it's just improv. And I'm finding out on the new record, I'm doing that I'm taking more of the spontaneous stuff first, like. My basic tracks that I thought were going to be my scratch tracks are turning into my main guitar sounds, because it's very hard to catch the inspiration and the spontaneity of first coming up with something. Like I plugged in this Monterey pedal and I came up with this melody to this track that I had. And then I said, all right, that sounds great. I'm going to go back and I'm going to redo it. And then I go back to it and I listen to it and I'm like, I'll never be able to play it again. First off, I don't know what I played. Second of all, I'm never going to capture that feeling. So the spontaneity thing is really the best way to go. We'll do another song. We're going to do that. So these are those two songs that we spoke about before. We talked about the Magic Cat song, and then this is that song I was telling you about, which I wrote for my wife. It's called Empress. What other kind of questions anyone got?
You kept going back to you hum beats and hear melodies in your head, and I come from the guitar. However, do you ever write a song starting from a drum beat or a bass line that's in your head or anything like that? Or does it always come from the guitar first?
Usually it comes with the guitar first, but sometimes especially like with now, Easy Drummer and stuff like you have that program Easy Drummer, Superior Drummer. It's like these drum loop things that you could put on like an actual drum beat. So sometimes hearing a groove or something will make you write a riff. So sometimes I'll use it like that, something to inspire me to write to.
And what about playing with other musicians? Have you always been a solo artist, or did you ever play in a band when you were younger?
I used to play in a band. I started the guitar at 11, and I started playing out at 14, which was really young. Most of the other guys in the band were like 18 and 19, and I remember my father used to take me to all my shows because I wasn't able to get in to the shows because I wasn't of age, so I always had to have my father there as a chaperone. So I was playing around. We used to do covers, and then I started to write songs, later on with a band. But I started to write like material, like just like little ideas, like I was telling you about. Back then, like I still have the tape recorder, one of those old Panasonics, and I have the tapes with ideas on them that I still go back to. There's a couple of songs to the new record that the little idea was there, and then I kind of expanded on it. So I ended up going instrumental for two reasons. One is I heard my sisters. I have three older sisters, so I heard one of their vinyl records. It was Jeff Beck, Wired. And that kind of changed my outlook on, hey, I don't need a lead singer with lead singer disease. I could write my own stuff. So that's one of the reasons why I ended up doing an instrumental thing. So I started doing this officially as a solo artist, like probably around like 1992, and then my first record came out in 1995. Yeah. So would I work with a singer? Yeah, I'd like to play with Britney Spears, to be honest with you. I'd love to be in her band. But it's hard to find, like for me to do something with a vocalist, it would have to be somebody that's really has an original style going on. And it's very hard to find that in any sort of instrumentation. If someone that has I really don't want someone that's going to be screaming. I don't want the Cookie Monster thing. I'd rather somebody that has a really good voice, like Chris Cornell, for instance. He has a great voice. Somebody that has a nice voice that you could sing a melody to. You know what I mean? That would be fun to do. Yeah, I've done some session work. The most famous stuff I did was Reverend Run from Run DMC, and I did some stuff, and that was really cool. I was in the city here, so. Some rap stuff, some of them like a rock guitar thing in it, so that I did stuff like that. Through somebody that knew me, I got a call like at 2 o'clock in the morning. Rob, hey, you want to come down to the Hit Factory and record? And I was like, sure, why not? And that's a funny story. That I was down there, and my thing really took only. 15 minutes, and I wish I got paid the money that I got paid for that 15 minutes every day. Would be great, but I got paid a lot of money, and basically the producer hummed this thing and said, yeah, this is what I kind of want you to do. So I said, all right, something like this, yeah. So I did that, I recorded that, and then I kind of got to stay and watch Reverend Run do his vocal tracks, and it was the hilarious thing. We sit in the studio, and we're in the mixing room, and he's in this room. And he's singing, and the producer stops it, and he said, "I'm getting this noise." So the guy was like, "What?" So Reverend Ron was like, "What noise?" He's like, "I'm hearing some freaking noise. Let's try this again." So they record again. Stops. And he goes, "Can you come in here?" And he says, "What are you wearing?" So he comes in, and he's wearing one of those silky running things, and he says, "The noise is your friggin' pants rubbing together." He says, "Take your friggin' pants off and go back in the room and sing the song." So he took his pants off. He went back in. He was like, "All right, now it sounds good. Now you can sing." I thought that was funny. The sweatsuit rubbing together. What else?
Over the years, have you written lyrics? I mean, sure you probably have something
I have written. Yeah, I do have some stuff written, more like more like poems and stuff like that, which you could probably put into lyrics. See, what I'd like to try and do one day possibly is, and I was doing this with somebody, and the guy ended up moving to Ireland, but I had this guy that was actually going to take two of my songs as an experiment and take the melodies and put like a vocal thing to it. So that might be interesting to do, because I do have I have like five albums worth of written material already that I could do whatever I want with. So I could change it, I could take certain sections of it and make a different song out of it. So it's a possibility.
For your bass and drum tracks, is that all machine done, or do you find session artists do that for you?
I do, no, I have a band, two guys that have been playing me for a while, but like my career with bands has been almost like Spinal Tap-ish, where they blow up in smoke and stuff. So each record has somebody different on it. I'm always playing with a different band. This past record, my new record, which is called A21 Monroe Drive, actually has two different bands on it, because the band I was playing with at the time, one guy had a kid, couldn't be in a band anymore. The other guy was playing with his wife, and he said, so we said, all right, so let's record the 5 songs we know. And then I got another band to do the other remaining 6 tracks. So it's kind of weird, I'm hoping that with the way things go now with technology, to be honest with you, the new record has band members on it, but it also has what I was telling you before. It's like it's real drums, but it's sample loops of them, and you can put them together. I mean, and it sounds like real drums. I mean, you can't tell the difference. I put it on for somebody that's a drummer, and I was like, and they were like, "Well, that sounds great." And I was like, that's a loop. And he's like, "What do you do with that? You put me out of business." But I mean, it's a lot easier. To be honest with you, everyone's trying to do things cheaper these days. So now I could record my record at home. I could do the drum tracks myself. I don't know. I'm experimenting on the new record of doing like a half and half thing, and it's a lot easier to do. And you could also do electronic kit. So my drummer now could actually play an electronic kit, go into the computer, and get like the sounds. I could have John Bonham's bass drum sounds through him an electronic kit, and he could actually play the parts. So I'm thinking about trying to do something like that with the new record. Yeah. What else? Anything else? Anything about gear, guitars? Yeah.
I'm sure nobody asked you this, but what's your pick collection look like? Because I know George and I are pretty big pick gurus, So I didn't know if you have anything special, like a certain jazz pick that you liked.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm using these. They're called They're called shot. They're called Hawk picks. Hawk picks. They're made in the UK, and I've been endorsing them now for probably around a year. And really nice company. Again, a mom and pop type of company. He hand makes the picks, and they're really nice, good tone. I mean, he put, I got my logo on there. He put my logo on. You can put anything you want on it. And I mean, to me, I'm really like I'm a tone nut. Like before I had this pick, I would go and I would record the same thing, and then do it 25 times, record it, and go listen back, and see which pick sounded good, the plastic. But it tends to be that this one always seems to come out on top. It sounds really nice. So I do like these. It's worth checking out. Hopefully you guys, maybe you'll get them in the store.
What about your experience with acoustic guitars? Do you play any acoustic guitars?
Yeah, I play acoustic guitars. A lot of times what I'll do with acoustic guitars is, I have old school outlook for recording. As far as, I have a big range of influences. So but I go back to, as far as recording, you go back to like Jimi Hendrix, and you go back to Led Zeppelin, and the studio is one thing, live is another. So like my records have, like I always record in stereo. So if I do one guitar part, it's done twice, and then I do the harmony to that, it'll be done twice. Then I'll put an acoustic guitar on, and I'll do that twice as a backing thing. So I layer a lot of stuff. A lot of times the acoustic stuff is layered in the back. And I'll do something like, if this say the chord, like for instance that Empress, that. So I'll do one track of the guitar doing that, and then what I'll do is I'll move the whole thing. Actually, if I can do it. to painstakingly record it an octave higher and just keep it as like a chimey thing on the top. It's basically like a Nashville tuning, but cheating. You just play the same thing an octave higher. And then what I'll do is I'll get an acoustic guitar and I'll play either a different voicing or the same thing. But it does have an effect because of it's a totally different tone. And then I'll just mix everything together. And I really don't think about like what it's going to sound like. Am I going to be able to reproduce it live? To me, it doesn't matter. Live, it's going to be a different thing. I don't want to go see a band that sounds like a record anyway. So why would I want to? No. So like when I play, it's a trio. It's old school guitar, bass, and drums. The bass player has a lot of work to do because he's playing the bass lines, tapping the harmonies on his. So it's he's got his work cut out for him. Anything else? No. All right. We'll keep going. What instruments do you guys play? Is everyone guitar players? You guys play other things here? Drums and guitar. That's why you asked about the drums. Bass. Cool. I do, I did. It's weird. I was talking about the new record, and and I was doing like the scratch things, and I have a 7-string guitar, and I had a bass, but I don't know what happened to it, and I wanted to put the bass on this track, and I didn't feel like sending it to my bass player, so I took out the 7-string and I retuned it, and I put it through a compressor. I put it into Pro Tools, and I was like, hey, you know what? This sounds pretty good. So I recorded this thing. And I sat there and I took all this time about getting it right and getting the groove. And I mean, it's simple, but the thing is, like I told you, there's so many layers going on. I have one guitar with the auto wah on. I have another acoustic thing going on. I have all this stuff going on. I'm like, the bass line doesn't really need to be too busy. So it just needs to be a nice groove. So I did this thing, and now I'm at the point now where I'm going back and I'm finishing so I have like 4 songs finished, and one of them is this song, and I'm like, I'm not having anyone do the bass track. I'm keeping the 7-string bass line on there. But I mean, if it sounds good, doesn't matter. Yeah. And I definitely think there's a difference though when you play bass with as fingers as opposed to using are you a bass finger guy or?
I play finger style and slap a lot.
Yeah, there's a difference. There's definitely a difference in the tone. I mean, even with the guitar, I have this new tune that I'm working on. The thing is, I'm at the point now where I don't want to repeat myself on records, and I want to come up with something interesting. So, a cool thing to do is, not play the guitar with a pick. You know what I mean? And mess around, and you come up with different riffs. So, like this new song that I'm working on, and I recorded it so long ago that I can believe this. I don't remember the chords, but I've been working on the lead section. So, there's this cool, I was like, what am I going to do to make this song different? And so like, there's this part. So the chorus is actually this little chordal thing because I wasn't using a pick. So I started to mess around and I came up with this little like. So just playing the guitar, not with the pick, and makes you play differently. So then I said, you know what? I'm not even going to play the melody with the thing. Because I recorded the melody, and it's one of those things where I was telling you about that I wanted to keep because I thought the spontaneity was there, but I listened back to it, and I wasn't too happy with the tone, so I was like, I want to do this, but I'm never going to be able to capture the sound that what I did. So I said, if I'm going to do it, I got to do something different. So now, now what I'm doing is now I'm working on the melody. And this is something cool about that you can think about when you're writing is where you play it on the guitar makes a difference. Like, for instance, so if you have a melody, like I was doing this melody here, like I was doing. And it's using a lot of the lower strings. And this is one of those melodies that I hum, so there's definitely a weird kind of string skipping thing, which I never would have played before. So I said, you know what, I like it, and I like playing with my fingers, but I'm not too happy about using the low strings. So then I started to move it, and it sounds so much better, I think. So then I started to do. You can go open. So it becomes something totally different, you know, because now you have, you can play like a double stop. So depending on where you play stuff makes a difference. As opposed to same notes, but the tone is different. So that's one thing to do is like when you're playing something, always kind of move it around to a different area on the guitar. Even comes to like the basic, you know, like your basic blues riffs. Did you ever try that? Like if you take, now everyone plays. Right, if you take that and you move it over here. Totally feels totally different. What happens is it makes you play differently. What you play after it is going to make a difference.
Do you ever mess around with playing over the pickups in different spots?
Yeah. You know what I noticed lately is I've been watching. You know, when you watch videos of yourself playing, I've noticed that I change when I'm playing melody stuff. I'm more closer to here, which I never was before. Yeah. And then when I'm playing, if I do have to do something where I'm picking, I'll automatically move back here. But more melodic stuff, I'll play closer to the neck. There's definitely a difference. I mean, I don't even have like a technique with my right hand. I'm just like messing around, but I mean, I'm starting to like what it sounds like. You know? And plus, then you can kind of mess around with the bar more. So anything that's going to make you play different is a good thing. I haven't really messed around too much in with tunings, which is something that is worth doing. I haven't experimented too much with that, so that's another avenue to do stuff. All right, we'll keep going. We do have some cool giveaways. We got some Diodario strings who's sponsoring this. We also I'm giving away this Ibanez tube screamer, my that's on the board, my tube screamer, and some other goodies. So hopefully you guys stick around for that. And well, also, I do have, I didn't mention to you, I should have mentioned it earlier, but if you guys do like what you guys are hearing, I do have CDs, available. You can see Andres, raise your hand back there. You can see Andres if you guys are interested in buying anything. And I also have a 2-disc instructional DVD that I released. I have a couple of them here if anyone's interested in that. So the DVDs are $20, the CDs, any CD is $10. If not today, and you guys are iTunes guys, I'm on iTunes, I'm all of that stuff.
Spotify as well, right?
What?
Spotify as well.
Yeah. Bye.